Um, Nicholas. Anyways, but with that being said, when it comes to faith or any type of religion, I'm pretty sure you, like, I'm going to use you as an example because you are a believer of the Abrahamic faith. People have faith in the Hindu deities. People have faith in the Norse deities and the Aztec deities. Does that make their deities true?
Yeah, I think probably. I mean, yeah, fallen angels, demons. Yeah,
Well, that kind
I
of
think there's a lot of truth to it. Yeah, I
that
think there's a
kind of
spiritual world.
well, that kind of pews yourself in the foot because these religions actually predate Christianity by thousands of years, even to the point to where a lot of the stories, especially in the Old Testament, come from the Mesopotamian mythologies that also came before, such as Sumeria, Babylonia. So you also have to take them into account. The Epic of Gilgamesh, prime example. So you cannot say that they're fallen demons or this, that, and the third when these stories are in your Bible are carbon copies of stories that came well before its time.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but when we're looking at these specifically, we're talking about Jesus himself being a liar or a fraud.
Mm-hmm. And saying Jesus is God is technically blasphemous according to New Testament scripture.
Yeah. So would you like to dispute Jesus not being a liar or a fraud?
Sure. I mean, you're making the claim, so
Yeah, Jesus didn't fulfill a single messianic prophecy. Can you name a messianic prophecy he did fulfill?
Isaiah 53.
Yeah, have you read? How much of Deutero Isaiah have you read?
I don't know. Good chunk.
So when you say a good chunk, what's Deutero Isaiah about?
Isaiah was prophesying about the destruction of Israel and the restoration of Israel too in the end times.
Yeah. Well, not in the end times. After what event?
Was it Babylon?
It was Babylon. Yeah. Yeah. So when we look at Deutero Isaiah, which starts in verse or chapter, not verse, in chapter 40, runs to about chapter 55. We have, and I'll bring it up here on screen. We have over 8 different times in which Isaiah writes who the servant is. So when we read like in Isaiah 41:8, it says, "But you, Israel, my servant Jacob, whom I have chosen." So the servant here is Israel and Jacob. Here we see it being used in the plural. We'll go here, but here, "O Jacob, my servant, Israel, whom I have chosen." So we have, Jacob being the servant and Israel. "Remember these things, O Jacob and Israel, for you are my servant. I formed you, you are my servant. O Israel, do not forget me." 45:4, "For the sake of my servant Jacob and Israel, my chosen, I call you by your name. I give you a title, though you do not know me. Go out from Babylon, free from Chaldea. Declare this and shout with joy from the earth. For the Lord has redeemed his servant Jacob." Isaiah 49:3, "And he said to me, you are my servant Israel, in whom I will be glorified." 49:7, "Thus says the Lord, the Redeemer of Israel and his Holy One. Abhorrent nations, king shall see pride." Boom. So we just see where time and time again the servant is Israel. And then when we go to Isaiah 52, which is where I think it's going to be important to get the context for what's going on in 53. What we have here is, so Israel went into Babylon. They're exiled to Babylon, and they paid double for their sins. They paid double. And so when we go to verse 10, where this kind of starts, "The Lord has bared his holy arm before the eyes of all the nations, and the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. Depart, depart, go out from there." So they're leaving Babylon. "Touch no unclean thing, go out from the midst of it, purify yourselves. you who carry the vessels of the Lord, for you shall not go out in haste, and you shall not go out in flight, for the Lord will go before you, and the God of Israel be your rear guard. See, my servant shall prosper. Again, we know this is Israel. We know Israel shall prosper. He shall be exalted and lifted up and shall be very high. Just as there were many who were astonished in him, so marred in appearance beyond human semblance. Remember, they're coming out of exile. They have been slaves, right? So marred in the appearances of the Jews who are leaving. And this is important because the whole purpose of the stories of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and other stories that we hear while in Babylonian exile is to show the perseverance of the Jewish people, because before this time, slaves would just kind of become one people. They were just slaves. But the whole purpose of the stories in exile is to show the perseverance of the Jewish people trying to maintain our identity. And so they're beyond human semblance, and his form beyond that of mortals. And so here we get kind of a narrative shift. So he, being Israel, will startle many nations, because we're coming out of Babylon. We're marching out of Babylon. We're going back home as a people. And it's the Jews that are leaving. And the kings are startled because of this. The kings who put us there, the kings who traded us for nothing. If they caught an Israelite, they would take them to Babylon and trade them for nothing. Kings shall shut their mouths because of Israel, for that which has not been told them they shall see, that which they had not heard them they shall contemplate. Now, what are they going to contemplate? That's when we go to Isaiah 53. So Isaiah 53 is from their eyes. It's from the eyes of these kings as the Jews are leaving Babylon. And it starts out with, who's going to believe what we have heard and seen? Who's going to believe this? And to whom has the Lord of the arm been revealed? And then it goes on where it's talking about Israel, when they go back, we're going to be a young plant again. This young plant is reference to any time Israel comes out of exile. We're like a young plant being planted back in Jerusalem. And we're always referred to as like a root out of dry ground. It's always like a thing you'll see with Israel coming out of exile. So this is all literally about Israel. It's not about Jesus. It's about Israel.
Can you go to Acts 33 or Acts 8:32 and 33 where it says that Isaiah 53 is actually about Jesus? I mean, like, I see, yeah, like definitely in the previous chapters it's referring to Israel, obviously Jacob. As
You said Acts 8:33,
32 and 33, yeah. But I think you're going a little bit like if you can't see there's no reason to assume that it's Jacob in 53, like just because it was Jacob earlier, you know, and
well, you just have to explain the narrative shift. Oh yeah, I love this one. Well, this one here will definitely go over this. We'll get this brought up. So the one that you're going to bring up, and this just so you're aware, I believe that Luke, who wrote Acts as well, I believe that Luke was written in the mid-2nd century. And we can go over that in a little bit if you want. But in 32 it says, now the passage of the scripture that he was reading was this: like a sheep he was led to the slaughter, like a lamb silent before its shearer, so he does not open his mouth. In humiliation justice was denied him. Who can describe his generation when his life is taken away from the earth? And the reason why I don't think this fits at all is when we go and we actually read what happened during this time, is that you are going to read there that it talks about how he was submissive and silent in the face of suffering. But it's important to remember, Jesus was neither submissive nor silent, right? He knew that there was a plot to arrest and execute him. And remember, when we go to Luke 22:36, he instructed his disciples to buy swords. He said, hey, I have told you guys to buy purses and other things, right? No weapons. However, I need you to go buy swords now. And then he realizes they have swords. He's like, oh, that works. That works. But he tells them to go by swords because he knows there's a plot against him. And those swords were used against the people to arrest him in Luke 22:49. And in fact, in Luke 22:36, he says the reason why they need these swords is because he needs to be labeled or among the people causing problems, which means that he knew the swords were going to be used. He needed the swords to be used, or else there's no crime, because it's not against the law to carry swords. You can have swords on you. It's only against the law if you use the swords against other people unjustly. Now, it is true, I'd be disingenuous if I just left it at that. It is true, Peter used a sword, cut a man's ear off, and then Jesus healed the ear, yes. But that use of the sword was enough for Jesus to say, huzzah, prophecy fulfilled. I'm part of these guys. I did what these guys did. I'm part of them. We also have where at his trial he rebuked those who accused him. We see this in John 18:22-23 and 34-37, Luke 22:67 through chapter 23 to verse 3, Matthew 26:64, Mark 14:62. So he wasn't submissive and he wasn't silent. Acts got it wrong.
So you think if he, like, how many words is he allowed to say? Like, he's not allowed to say a single word. If he breaks silence even once, then the prophecy isn't fulfilled?
No, he wasn't submissive. It was said he was silent and submissive, right? So if you're going to be silent and submissive,
So you
right?
think he was silent then?
No, he
You
wasn't.
just have a problem with submissive?
No, he
Like, he
rebuked
wasn't
his
quiet
people.
enough for you?
Well, no, it's what does silent mean? Can you tell me what the definition of silent is?
Well, I'm asking you because you're the one who has a problem.
Yeah, silent
with
means
it.
you keep your mouth shut. Silent means you're silent.
Completely?
You don't
Like, he's
say
not even allowed-
anything.
What if he breathes too loud? Does that disqualify him for the
Oh,
prophecy?
no. It's okay for him to breathe. Sure, yeah. Let's not be facetious here.
But what if it's
but
too
when
loud?
you're
What if it's, like,
actually, when you're
loud
actually,
breathing?
well, that's fine. But see, the
Oh.
issue that you're running into here, though, is that he actually spoke out. Right? He
What if he
spoke
bumps
out.
his? Oh, what if he hits his knee, like stubs his toe, and then he screams? Does that break the prophecy?
Oh, well, no, that's not what's recorded. We're talking about what the scriptures itself says. Like, you don't have to like what the scripture says, but the scriptures show that he wasn't silent, that he was rebuking and oftentimes speaking sarcastically, right? So, like, Luke just doesn't know what he's talking about, probably because it was written in the mid-2nd century.
Right. So in Matthew 26:63, when it says, "But Jesus remained silent when he was being questioned by the high priest," that doesn't count. I mean, he wasn't leading a rebellion. He was actually he submitted to the rulers. He said you wouldn't have that authority if it wasn't given to you from above. And he wasn't leading a rebellion. He said, if my kingdom was of this world, I would have, my people would fight to free me, but it's not. Like,
And where's this at?
you haven't heard that verse? It's
No.
John 18:36, I think.
Oh, I thought you said Matthew.
There's Matthew 26. The first one was Matthew 26:63. And
Yeah,
also he
Matthew.
rode on a donkey, by the way.
No,
That's
Matthew.
Zechariah prophecy.
Matthew 26. He rebukes. Matthew 26. He says, wait. Did you say in Matthew it said he was silent?
Yeah, verse 63.
Well, it says in verse. Yeah, we'll get this brought up.
He was talking
Right,
a
so-
lot of shit in Matthew.
I just wonder how many words he's allowed before. he's not
hold
silent.
on. What it says here in 63. So they ask him. The high priest stood up and said, "Have you?" So what they asked him is, so they're questioning him. Now the chief priests, the whole council, were looking for false testimony against Jesus, so they might put him to death, but they found none. Though many false witnesses came forward, and at last 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days." The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest, so right here on this one question, Jesus was silent. But then it says, then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah." And then right here, Jesus talks. He wasn't silent in all of Matthew. Then
Yeah, so how
Jesus
many
said to
words is he
him,
allowed? I'm just curious what your standard is for silence.
hold on, but you have said so, but I tell you, from now on you will see, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Well, no, what I'm saying is the issue that you're running into, right, is that it is clearly that that whoever wrote Acts, like, wasn't paying attention to Matthew, right? Because if they were paying, so either whoever wrote Acts wasn't aware of the Gospels, probably because the Gospels didn't exist at the time, but they weren't aware of the Gospels, or they just don't know what's going on because it's Luke. He wasn't present, and Luke was lied to, or Luke is just throwing something in there hoping it sticks, but it's not true. It's the case that Jesus just wasn't silent.
So where's the line? Like when does he become not silent? Is he allowed to say one word? Is that okay? Is that still silent?
Well, I
Or
mean,
or is that
you
too
can
much?
keep being facetious, sure,
It's a
but
genuine
when
question. You're the one who's saying he's not silent. I'm wondering where your standard is. It seems arbitrary.
yeah, so when it says a lamb silent before its shearer, so he does not open his mouth. As soon as Jesus opens his mouth to respond back,
Oh, okay.
he's no longer being silent, right?
So he
Because
gets not even one
because the
word. He can't say one word. Okay. That's
correct,
interesting.
the prophecy says he does not open his mouth, right?
Right.
So
And
the
you take
prophecy's
that
wrong. The prophecy
100%
got it wrong.
literally. Yeah. Okay. You don't see the similarities between the whole gospel, healed by his wounds. It doesn't mean anything to you.
No, no, not in Isaiah 53. No.
The Lamb of God riding in on a donkey.
Oh, we can go to that. Do you know where that scripture is found in the Old Testament?
Zechariah.
Yeah, what chapter and verse?
I don't know. But it's obviously fulfilled there. Somehow you're going to cope with that too.
No. What does it exactly say about riding on the donkey?
It's like, behold, our king comes riding on a donkey.
Yeah, and what else happens?
Well, I don't know. You tell me. Why are you asking? You don't know?
So it's in Zechariah 9:9.
Okay, cool.
So I'm gonna get this brought up real quick. Gotta get loaded up. So when we read this, I'm going to read 9:9. It's going to start out with, Rejoice greatly, O daughter Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he. So he's coming back from war. This is coming back from war. Did Jesus come back from war when he was riding on his donkey?
Sorry, what verse?
It's 9:9.
Righteous and victorious. Where do you... Oh, yeah, I mean, how was he not righteous and victorious?
Yeah, he wasn't a king. This is insinuating he's coming back from war. And we'll get to that, how we know. Humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And what's even funny is this part right here. Matthew had a misunderstanding of this and thought Jesus literally rode on two donkeys. Matthew gets this wrong. Matthew misread this and thought it was like two donkeys. He will, now the important part, but the actual prophecy, what the actual prophecy is he will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off. He shall command peace to the nations. His dominion shall be sea to sea and from the rivers of the earth. So my question is, when Jesus was alive, did he end the war? Did he end war? Did
No,
he cut the
he
chariot
will,
from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem? Because this is talking about a reunifying of the two kingdoms, because the two kingdoms are going to be reunified, and because of this, there's going to be a battle bow is going to be cut off, meaning the Jews, the Israelites, will no longer be at war with the nations of the world, and there'll be peace. Did this happen while Jesus was alive?
He's still alive, so it'll happen in the future.
What? Wait,
Oh,
hold on.
so it's a partial fulfillment.
Yeah. Just
Oh,
like
so
when Jesus said, "I came to proclaim liberty for the captives." Same thing.
so it didn't come true then, is what you're saying. It hasn't come true.
Not yet. No, of course not.
Oh, well, let me know when it comes true. Once it comes true, once Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey and hops off that donkey and then reunites the kingdoms, then come back to me and say, "Hey, Jesus fulfilled this." Up until then, it's an unfilled prophecy. I'm not impressed. Do you have another prophecy we could talk about?
Wait, so you're saying the two different verses have to be fulfilled like in immediate succession?
Yeah, that's what it says. It quite literally says, and we'll bring it back up. Some
It
people's
doesn't
reading
say when he'll
comprehension
take away
isn't.
the chariots. It doesn't say when he'll rule. It just says that he
Oh,
will.
it
You're the one
does.
putting
It
the
does.
timeline on it.
It does. He says that when he rides in triumphant and victorious, he's going to ride in because the wars outside have been concluded. So he's riding in, and then he's going to cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall command peace to the nations. So he's riding in on this donkey
It
to
doesn't
end
say
the
when
war.
though.
It is. It's all in one thing. That's why. That's the whole purpose.
your assumption.
That's literally no. That's what the prophecy says. That's what words mean.
No,
words mean
that's
words, my dude.
literally not. It doesn't say
It
he'll
is.
do
It
it right
is.
after. It doesn't say that.
It is. That's the whole reason. That's the whole reason why he's riding on the donkey. So the whole purpose of him riding on the donkey is to go reunite
That's you.
the two
Just your opinion.
kingdoms.
Okay.
Well, no, that's what the words say. Let's put ones in the chat if words mean words, and let's put
I mean,
two in the
didn't
chat
he
if this
tell-
guy doesn't know what he's saying.
Cyber, didn't he tell his disciples that this shit would happen while they were still with him?
He did.
Alive.
That's where he lied. That's where that's where he lied too.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
He did.
So tell
Be
me,
gone.
show me where on that in that passage where it says when he will cut off.
Oh
the
yes,
chariots.
the whole. Oh, we discussed this already. It's the whole reason why he's riding on the donkey. Literally the whole. So are you
Yeah.
are you saying that Jesus just rode on a donkey and they're going, oh, fulfillment of prophecy? He rode a fucking donkey into Jerusalem.
Well, then he rose from the dead and changed the entire world, and now he has people like you obsessed with him. So I think he
Oh,
did
you-
a lot.
Oh,
Even if
you
he
can't
didn't do
prove he
everything,
rose from the dead. He's a
you know?
carcass. He's a carcass. He didn't rise from the dead.
No,
But
I
do you have
can't
another?
prove it.
Yeah, so don't make claims you can't substantiate. Do you have another prophecy you'd like to talk about? We'll dismantle that one too.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, bro. Like,
Mhm.
it's just crazy. Let me see. Oh yeah, Daniel 9:24, 26. Anointed one will be cut off.
Oh, you don't want to go Daniel 9.
Why not?
So Daniel 9.
You can go Psalm 22 as well.
So hold on. What year? Like the only way Daniel 9 works. The only way it works is one, if we don't realize that the first Messiah is Cyrus, right? If you forget that, if you don't acknowledge that it's Cyrus who actually allowed the Jews to go back to rebuild Jerusalem, if you started at Cyrus with his decree, then the timeline doesn't work. Second, it only works if you can give me the actual time when Jesus died. That's going to correlate with the supposed eclipse that you guys are going to claim that NASA had. You're going to have to correlate that, and they don't correlate. So Daniel 9 mathematically doesn't fit.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with. I thought maybe you would be more familiar with it, but
Yeah,
I just
so
know a lot of people bring that one up. You know.
yeah, a lot of people do. The issue with that one is you gotta, because so in order for Christians to make that one work, they have to try to drop it to I'm gonna butcher his name. It's not Cyrus, it's Xerxes. I'm butchering that name, but it's him. What was that, Hanji?
Artaxerxes.
Yes, they have to say it's him, and that's the only way that can work. But according to the scripture, Cyrus gives them the actual decree. So if you go through the biblical text itself, it doesn't work. And it also requires you to like know the date that Jesus passed away, and nobody knows that. So it's the people that will claim that are people that do these like weird calendar things. And once you get into that one, then you're getting to some conspiracy theorists. So yeah, the issue that you are going to run into with Psalm 22, and we're glad to go into Psalm 22. So when we go and talk about Psalm 22, we're going to talk about, because there's going to be things in here that you're going to point to and be like, that's Jesus. That's Jesus. But there's going to be other parts that we're going to go to, and I'm going to say, well, this isn't Jesus. I believe that this is just about David. This is David lamenting, because if you know much about David, which I assume you do, I don't think you're completely dumb when it comes to scripture. In the Old Testament, David's a fuck up, right? David causes his 10 wives and his child, his first child with Bathsheba, to be raped and killed. His child gets killed because he had Uriah unalived. He takes a census. God commands him to take a census, and then he takes the census, and then but because he actually did it, and it's like God was like testing him to make sure he didn't do it, but he did it. It caused 70,000 Israelites to be unalived. Like, David's a mess up. David knows he's a mess up. And David, if David lived today, he would be like the emo kid. And his scriptures are always, he's going through a lamentation, then he's praising God, then he's going on a downfall, then he's praising God. You'll see this with David's writings. So what we have here is David probably realized, because David, his entire kingship, he was at war. His entire kingship, and same with Saul, they were at war constantly. So when he's saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Yeah, Jesus might have said that, but it's easy to add this in if you're writing it and you're trying to look at scripture and say, what can we say happened? But the part that you're going to miss out is, why are you so far from helping me? From the words of my groaning, oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night I find no rest. So this is he's complaining because he knows that he's a fuck up. He knows that there's kingdoms that are wanting to go to war with him. Then he goes on to his praise. Yet you are holy, enthroned in the praises of Israel. In you our ancestors trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried and were saved. In you they put the trust and were not put to shame. So these are the Israelites. He's here, talking about, this is what you did for my people. So that's how we know that this is David. Then we're going to go to where he says, like, I am a worm and not human, scorned by others and despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They sneer at me and shake their heads. Commit your cause to the Lord. Let him deliver. Let him rescue the one in whom he delights. And this is a thing because he viewed himself as a worm, not human. He was a horrible person in his own eyes, and he was scorned by and despised by his people. Why? And it says, commit your cause to the Lord, let him deliver, let him rescue the one whom he delights. Because David never got punished for his sins. Every time David fucked up, David survived while other people suffered. His wives were literally raped because of Uriah. His son was unalived as a result. 70,000 Israelites. He was constantly running from the people. So this is where he's saying, this is how the people view me. Do whatever you want. You could do whatever you want. It doesn't matter, because God's going to save you. You can. So, right? Yet it was you who took me. So literally, this is all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus, or not Jesus. It's all about David. It's all about David. None of it's about Jesus.
Oh, look at the translate. What translation is this?
This is the NRSV UE.
I can tell why you like that one.
Yeah, it's a scholarly edition. Yeah, if you ever go to seminary, if you ever go to Bible school or anything, this is the version they're going to give you.
You should check KJV or NIV or
Why would I
ESV.
why would I use shitty versions? The
Why not?
NIV is
Just take a look.
because the NIV is a thought for thought. The
Just take a look.
KJV,
What could go wrong? Why don't you want to switch translations quick?
Because even scholarly Bible scholars, like in seminary, they don't even promote the KJV. It's actually one of the worst translations.
like, okay, cool.
yeah. In fact, have you actually did you know that when King James, and you could go read this, you find this out yourself. Did you know that when King James had the KJV commissioned, he had rules placed on it. So, for example, one of the rules he had placed on it was the word slave was to not be used, right? He didn't want it used unless it was being used in like a favorable term. So if it's anything that could be looked at like, hey, we're freeing them, then they could use the word slave. Because
So
if
you
we're
can't
freeing,
switch the translation for 1 second?
huh?
You refuse to check out NIV or ESV? It's interesting. I wonder why.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can go look at them. They're just horrible translations.
Yeah, bring it up. That'd be cool.
Yeah, we can go
NIV.
bring it up. Yeah, and I know it's going to have the version that you want. Which one do you prefer?
I like NIV.
I will go to NIV. Oh, that's not NIV. Oh, that is NIV. Oh, that's NIV UK. I don't imagine there'd be too big of a difference
You
between
could probably
the
go
two.
to pretty much any other translation than the one you're using. So it doesn't
I
really
mean,
matter.
I'd rather use the ones that scholars and people in seminary who actually go for study to be pastors and preachers with the Bible
You cherry
that
pick
he's
one. I
using.
mean, why don't you go to Bible Hub and go to verse 16 and then go compare how many translations, all written by scholars, by the
I mean,
way.
I could technically go to the original Greek.
Yeah,
I'd rather that.
that's great. Do it.
Okay. What would you like me to look up?
Verse 16, the word
Did you
pierced.
hold on? Did you take a look? Did you take a look at the footnote though? So it says, "Packs of
Well, if
villains
it's so
encircle
obviously
me;
about
they
David,
pierce
like,
me." Well, hold on. But did you go read what the Masoretic text though? Right? It says like a lion, right? And this makes sense.
it's weird
Right.
that you changed it, right? Like, do you always use this translation? Or
But the
just for this
NIV?
chapter? No, the other one.
Oh yeah. Every time we've read things, I always use the NRSVUE. It's like I said. If you ever go to Bible school, I have a degree in theology. If you go to Bible school or you go to any school and you have a KJV and NIV, they're going to be like, you can't use that in here because it's a horrible translation. Because the NIV is a thought for thought. And they did that because they wanted to make it. NIV is more for like if you're trying to memorize scriptures and stuff. If you want like a thought for the day, that's what the NIV is for. It's not a direct translation. The KJV. If you go read the KJV, and you can Google this yourself. Google the rules King James put on the KJV. He put a bunch of rules on them. Again, so when you read like slave, right? One of the rules that he put on it was anytime slave was being used, like slave is okay, do not write slave. He wanted it translated to say servant, right? Because it was a political book. It was viewed as more favorable. However, if it's something that could be viewed like we're abolishing it, write slave. These are rules that he put in. He also required them to use the bishop's Bible. Like the KJV, they didn't like pull out Hebrew text and go translating from the Hebrew text, right? They had like Hebrew text there, but then they were comparing it to the bishop's Bible and a few other Bibles. And he's like, keep as much of the bishop's Bible as you possibly can. If there's something that could be like disputed, think about changing it. But he put a lot of rules on it, and it's just a horrible translation. Like, go study the KJV. Go study where it came from. Go study the rules that James
I'm
put
not
on
here
it.
to promote KJV. I don't really like that one specifically. I use it sometimes just to double check, but I mean, I'm looking on Bible Hub right now at Psalm 22:16, and there's like only 3 translations that don't say pierced. So I think it's funny if the Psalm 22 is so obviously, well, I guess you said you always use this translation, but still.
Yeah, but I also showed you the hold on. I also showed you, right? Don't be disingenuous here, because I went to your version like you want me to. We'll go back to it. I went to your version like you wanted to. And this time we'll go to the KJV. Well, the KJV this time. There's not much textual difference here. But when we go to the KJV, we'll go back down to verse... Oh, KJV took it out. KJV doesn't have the note in there. Them little wily bastards. They didn't even put it in this. We'll go back to the NIV then.
Yeah.
So the NIV puts a note there.
What about? I mean, we don't have to go on this one forever. What about Bethlehem and Egypt, and the root of Jesse? Well, Messiah was going to be born in Bethlehem, and he was going to be the root of Jesse, and he was going to come out of Egypt too.
Oh, do you know who it specifies?
What one?
Yeah, we'll go. We'll go read it real quick. It's going to be in Micah 5:2. And this one you're not going to like either, because again, this is a case where you're taking the scripture out of context. You're not reading the scripture in its entirety. All right, so we'll get this brought up. So you realize that when it mentions, let me get the full chapter up here real quick. So when we read here, it says, "But you, O Bethlehem of Ephrathah," that's a person. That's not a location. That's a person. Now there was Bethlehem and Ephrathah that became cities, but Bethlehem of Ephrathah is a person. It's not a location. And the issue that you run into, did you know that Bethlehem and the city of David are two different places? Were you aware of that?
No.
Yeah, Bethlehem is south. It's about 30 minutes south of Jerusalem. The city of David is part of Jerusalem. It's to the east side of Jerusalem. There's a hill. It's on the east side of Jerusalem. So the city of David and Bethlehem are two different locations. Now, it is the case that the city of David at the time could have been also referred to as Bethlehem, but that's up for toss-up. But just so you know, when we talk about like the city of Bethlehem and the city of David, they're two completely different locations. Just so you know. But we have, O Bethlehem of Ephrathah. So we have a person here that's being mentioned. And that is the farthest lineage, like David's oldest ancestors is pretty much what that saying is. Who are one of the little clans of Judah. From you, so from this person, shall come forth for me one who is the rule in Israel. So that's David, right? Whose origin is from old, because their ancestry is old. Therefore he shall give them up until the time when she, again this is a woman, who is in labor, has brought forth the rest of his kindred shall return, the people of Israel. And he shall stand and feed his flock in strength in the Lord, in majesty and his name, or in the majesty of the name of the Lord of God. And this is the part that fell. This is the part that didn't happen. And they shall live secure, for now he shall be great to the ends of the earth, and he shall be the one of peace. Now, we're now going to go into if the Assyrians come into our land and tread upon our soul. So this also has to take place before the Assyrians happen, because he's going to lead peace. Yeah.
Why do you think Bethlehem Ephrathah is a person and not a town? I mean, I have sources online that say it's a town. It's Bethlehem.
Yeah, those are apologetic sources. But if you look up Bethlehem of Ephrathah, so whenever you see of this, that's indicating it's a person, not a place. And it is the case that there is Bethlehem and Ephrathah are two different towns. They became two different towns. They're not the same town. They're two different towns.
I mean, so I'm looking at the That's like the only translation that says of again. So that's
Hmm.
I don't know. Like I'm scrolling through all the different. None of them say of, except for yours, which is weird. Like
Yeah, because
NIV,
you're reading
KJV,
apologetic
New King James
sources.
Version, NLT, ASV, Dewey
Yeah,
Rames, HNV, RSV. None of them. Young's Literal. None of them say Bethlehem of Ephrathah. And if you Google it, it says it's the city
you
of
know,
Bethlehem.
I am curious. I am curious. What does the KJV say?
You just Google. You could just Google
Yeah,
Bethlehem. Bethlehem Ephrathah. You could just
hold
Google it.
on. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, right? Yeah, it's a place. Is the name of the city Bethlehem, or is it Bethlehem Ephrathah? What's the name of the city?
Well, I'm assuming it has multiple names. I don't know.
Because this
It's
is a
not. It's not
case.
even a
Because I'm in
city, is
the
it?
I'm in the New King James version, and it gives like a name like it's a person. It's a person. Like let's go look what the KJV says. We'll go read. I'll go read the KJV. What does the KJV say? I bet it's going to give a first and last name too to indicate it's a person.
Though you are small among the clans of Judah, so it's not a person.
It is. Ephrathah was from a small clan in Judah. Yeah, see? But you, though thou be little amongst the clans of Judah. As a matter of fact, yeah, out of thee shall come forth. So it's a person. It's talking about a person. It's talking about an ancestor of David's.
Why
It's
don't
an
you
ancestor
Google
of
what is
David's. Yeah,
Google? What is
we'll
Bethlehem
Google it.
Ephrathah? I'd love to see because I did, and it said it's Bethlehem.
Yeah.
And John 7 also says that that the Messiah comes out of Bethlehem. I'm sure there's tons. I bet you can find rabbinical writings that say that it's a messianic prophecy.
Let's see.
The ancient name for Bethlehem, bro. All right, well, whatever.
All right, you're right. It's a place name. So I'll admit I was wrong there. It's not a name of a person.
And it's also quoted in John 7.
Oh, I don't care what John says. Yeah, I don't care what John says. So yeah, so David was also born there as well. So yeah, so if we're going from where David, but the issue that you're going to run into here, right? So even if we do have a case, oh, why did I go back to? We're in. Man, I'm forgetting how to spell Micah. Oh, that's why I need to go here. Yeah, Micah 5:2. I need all of 5. So the issue that you're running into, though, right, is that this still states, right, that when this Messiah is born, right, the rest of his kindred shall return to the people of Israel, right? And this is going to be a reoccurring theme that you're running into, right? Every verse that we've brought up, that we've been talking about, like this thing, we're having a return of the rest of his kindred, meaning that the kingdoms are going to be reunified, right? So the rest of his kindred shall return to the people of Israel, and he shall stand and feed his flock in strength of the Lord, in majesty in the name of the Lord God, and they shall live secure, for now he shall be great to the ends of the earth, and he shall be the one of peace. Jerusalem got the shit kicked out of him a few decades later. Like 100 years later, the Jews had to flee Judea because Hadrian laid complete waste and then set an idol on the Temple Mount saying, Jews, don't come back. Like, this didn't come true. It's just simply the case that it didn't come true.
The temple was destroyed just like Jesus said it would be.
Oh
And then
no,
the
that's
gospel,
only
and then the
hold on. That's
gospel spread
only
to
if
the Gentiles, just
hold
like
on.
Isaiah said it would be.
Wait, say that again.
And then the gospel spread to the Gentiles, just like I said Isaiah said it would. It says, I will be called, or it's like, I will be called by a people that are not my people. I'll make you jealous by a people that are not my people. You know, like I can't remember the exact prophecy. You
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about? I
Well,
can find it.
let's talk about the temple. That's presupposing. Like, when do you think the Gospels were written?
Um, Before the end of the first century, I think.
Do you hold to? Question is, do you hold to Markan authority?
No.
Do you know
What's
what
that?
Markan
Oh,
authority
like is
is?
that like how everything's based on Mark?
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure I buy it.
So, do you believe things are based on Matthew?
I don't know.
Because the reason where this comes from is, as a matter of fact, I think I find a chart that kind of
Oh, it's not
explains.
Isaiah, it's Hosea when it says, I will plant her for myself in the land. I will show my love to the one I called not my loved one. I will say to those called not my people, you are my people. And they will say, you are my God. So it's quoted in Romans as the gospel going out to the Gentiles. And so Jesus prophesied the temple would be destroyed. It got destroyed, and then the gospel went to the
Yeah.
Gentiles.
So hold on. So
Prophecies fulfilled.
essentially, yeah. So hold on. Essentially, what Markan authority says is, so we have the Synoptic Gospels, which are Matthew, Mark, and Luke, right? So with Mark, there is only 3% that's unique to Mark, right? And Mark is also the shortest book, which is why they think Mark came first. And then we have 3% of it that is Mark and Luke. There's 18% of it that is unique to Matthew and Mark. And essentially what these are is this 3% that's Mark and Luke. Mark mentions it, but then Luke expounds upon it, right? So, and then we have a case where this 18%, Mark talks about it like very briefly, but then Matthew expounds on it. And then again, when we look at this triple tradition where the 76% of Mark, out of this 76, 41% of it is found here. 40 so it's found in all three. And again, Mark mentions it briefly, but then Luke and Matthew expound on it, right? And it's only these events. So the events that are in Mark and Luke, they're not mentioned in Matthew. Things that are mentioned here are not mentioned here. Now, we have the double tradition where these things are shared, but they're not shared with Mark, and then only 35 and 20% respectively are unique. So all this just points to in the scholarly consensus that just says that Mark was written first.
Cyber, check your Disco real quick. I sent you something very interesting. You were going based off of the AI response. And it was updated this year also. So there was someone named Bethlehem whose mother
That's what
was
I
Ephrathah.
thought. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, I didn't want to dive too deep into it.
But there you go. You were correct the first time.
Yeah, that's
Speculation on it, but yeah, because a lot of places were a lot of stories in the Bible of places were named after people like Judah and other places that they mentioned in towns. So there you go.
What's the source for that article you found?
Yeah, give me a second.
JesusSucks.com.
AboutTheBibleProphecy.com.
Okay.
Smart ass.
I guess, I just got on my mind right now. What about the temple being destroyed? Doesn't that count as a fulfilled prophecy of Jesus?
no, because where we're well, yeah, hold on. So where we're going with the synoptic problem is that if we have cases where Matthew and Luke are sharing sources, and we know they're sharing sources, right? That's scholarly consensus that they're sharing sources. and I can show you that Luke was written in the mid second century, then it would be the case that, and we see this also in other biblical texts. We know that Daniel wasn't written during the Babylonian or Persian time period. It was actually written right around the Hasmonean time period. And we know that because the closer that Daniel gets to the Greek invasion, he's extremely accurate. And the closer he gets to Babylon, he becomes more and more inaccurate. We've actually found archaeological evidence that talks about, so you'll see where Daniel is talking about Nebuchadnezzar's son being Belshazzar. But we know today, because we have the Nabonidus cylinder and some other stuff, we know that Belshazzar was not Nebuchadnezzar's son. He was Nabonidus' son, and Nabonidus had no relation to Nebuchadnezzar, right? So we do have this thing where, like, it is a case that there is a tradition where we're writing something now, but because we want to explain the things that are happening now and kind of give some hope, we write them as if they were happening in the past. So what scholars...
You think it's all lies?
No, so what it is... Wait, say what?
You think the people who wrote Matthew 24 were just lying, right?
Yeah, I think... no, I think when they're talking about the destruction of the temple, I think it's a case that they are trying to gain followers. And so they're like, hey, we have this old text. Yeah, I don't think Jesus prophesied about the temple. I think the Gospels were written after the temple had already been destroyed, and they are writing them like they're happening at the time period. Sorry, like they're writing before the temple. Yes, that's my belief. That's what evidence supports. Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
Correct. They purposely wrote things that weren't true, for whatever purpose you said, like...
Yeah, Mark quite literally utilizes the works of Josephus. And Josephus was written after 70, but Mark utilizes Josephus. And if we're going to go off Markan authority, and if we know that Luke, who mentions Theophilus, and we don't have any Theophilus in the first century, the earliest we have a Theophilus that we would refer to as the most excellent is Theophilus of Antioch, which is in the mid second century. It would just go show, and then we have where both Mark is using, or Luke is using Mark, and we have Matthew using Luke. I can use that anchor point to say that Matthew was also written in the mid-second century. Unless you can find me a Theophilus in history outside of the high priest who ceased to be the high priest in 41.
I don't know. I haven't really studied the exact dating of Mark. I just assumed, it was true. But I guess...
Yeah, well, don't make assumptions. How you make an ass out of yourself?
Just a big lie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I mean,
and you can also talk about... Yeah, so we have... Yeah, so we do... Let me check the sources on here. Because it's not necessarily where it comes from. It's where do they source... Let me read who this person is. It's written by Roy Koenig.
What exactly does Mark use of Josephus? And how do you know when Mark heard it from Josephus? Can you tell me what Mark...
Yeah. Yeah, so it is the case that there's a lot of things... So, for example, let me see where we can find this. Make sure I'm using the right quote here.
I guess, even if it was written after, it doesn't mean that it's fake. But, I mean, I'm still not convinced it's written after. Just saying.
Yeah, so it is the case that, like, Josephus... is writing about the Jewish Roman, like, in fact, he has a whole series of books. In fact, Matthew also took from Josephus as well. But we have, like, the Gospel of Mark, and it's where he's writing about the Jewish Roman War. And so there's often times when he is framing with the Roman power and the Jewish resistance, because that's what Mark mentions. And let's see, I want to...
When do you think Paul died?
I don't think Paul existed.
Oh, Paul didn't exist.
Oh,
either.
That's convenient.
Do you know who Marcion is?
No, no, not really.
Oh
What,
man,
Gnostic?
man. Yeah, well, Marcion would be like the founder. So we get Paul from Marcion. You can actually go read about the church fathers, the early church fathers writing about Marcion. They actually referred to Paul. The early church fathers refer to Paul as the apostle to the heretics. And in fact, it's from Marcion. Marcion was deemed a heretic. Marcion's belief was that Yahweh was one God, and then there was God the Father. Yahweh was the God of the Old Testament, and he was this evil God, evil, horrible God. And so in the New Testament, there was God the Father, a different God, who sent down Jesus to redeem us from Yahweh. So yeah, that's where you get like the Gnostic idea from. And from Marcion, which was written in the about around like 136, this is where we get the letters of Paul. The letters of Paul and the Apostolicon quite literally comes from Marcion. We only hear Paul from Marcion first. In fact, Tertullian writes that he had to take the letters of Paul on faith, right? Except he knows it's true because he has his own edition of it. He has his own rendition of them. But
Wait,
if it
sorry,
wasn't,
can you repeat the how Marcion proves that Paul didn't exist? Like, can you go into more
oh
detail?
yeah. So Marcion has two books, and let me make sure. I want to make sure the.
It's like I told Jaren, Markeon is Paul. He inserted himself under a pseudonym.
And I just want to make sure.
Paul didn't exist is a crazy take, but whatever. I'm here for it. You know why I asked that? Because in Acts,
Yeah, that's what it
Paul
was, the
Paul is
Apostolicon. That's what I thought. Yeah. So it's the Marcion's Apostolicon. It's pseudographical text that introduces Paul. So it's
Oh wow, just
pseudographical.
like I said. Markeon is Paul.
Well, no. Marcion is not Paul. Don't say that. That's wrong.
I was
Marcion
going to
is.
say you should talk to Jaren about that because me and him were talking about it, and I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if Markeon is Paul. It's his pseudonym that he's using for the Apostolicon.
Well, it's his students. It's his students. We don't. I don't because even Jaren will go and say Marcion published them, but we don't know if Marcion wrote them. We can't say Marcion wrote them. We don't know who wrote them. We know it came from his school, though. It's his school of thought. So he published them.
Marcion was born
Marcion.
in 85
Yeah.
after Paul left this world.
No. These are dated to like I said. These are letters that are written later, but they appear to be earlier. Again, who was Paul's companion? Who traveled with Paul?
Luke.
Luke. Now, Luke is writing to a Theophilus. He's writing to a Theophilus. You just have to point to me outside of the high priest Theophilus, who ceased being the high priest in 41. And even then, there's contention whether or not, like amongst Christian scholars, whether or not he was the high priest or not, because there's some question whether or not there was some misrecordings there. So even that Theophilus being the high priest in 41 isn't for certain. You just have to show me in Luke 1:3 when he's writing to the most excellent Theophilus who this Theophilus is. Show me where there's a Theophilus in history. There's not one, except for Theophilus of Antioch, which was a bishop in the mid-2nd century.
I mean, just because he's not recorded anywhere else doesn't mean he didn't exist. I mean, how many people that existed are recorded elsewhere? You know, like there's probably a million Theophiluses that weren't recorded. In any
Yeah. Name any.
There's no records of them. It's
There,
2,000 years ago, bro.
there's no Theophiluses that are written. Nobody with
Prove
enough
it.
stature to have a
Prove prove that there's no other Theophiluses. Were you saying it's a high priest?
There
Who's the
there.
Theophilus that you think it is?
So in 41, there was a Theophilus who was the high priest in 41, but it's disputed whether or not he was the high priest or if a family member of his was high priest. That's something that's disputed amongst scholars because there's contrary records to it. But that was in 41. He ceased to be priest in 41. When do you think Acts was written?
In the 60s.
Yeah, it's dated to between 60 and 90. So it's definitely that's when scholars would say it was between
You
60
assume it's
and
after
90.
70. You
Huh?
say it has to be over 70.
Yes, because of Theophilus of Antioch, yeah.
I'm reading. Most people think it was like a Roman official. Prove
Yeah,
it
can you
wasn't.
name who the huh?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how many
Yeah, you just
records
have to show
been
me.
lost?
Yeah,
think
you
they
just
had
have to
kept-
show.
Like,
Yeah,
how
can
many
you show?
citizens- No, dude, it's 2,000-year-old records. They vaporized.
Mm-hmm.
They don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
Just because
How
we
ironic.
don't know.
they
like,
don't
this
don't
Earth-
vaporize. Hold on. They don't.
You want a
You realize
Twitter
we have.
account,
Hold on. You realize we have papyri that is much older than that, right? We have Greek papyri that is thousands upon thousands of years old. Like it
We
disintegrated.
don't
Get
have
out of
records
here with that.
every citizen from 2,000 years ago. That's insane.
Oh, no. But if there is somebody being referred to as a most excellent Theophilus, we would have writings from historians and stuff. Second, another reason
Says
why
who?
we'd have reason
Says
to
who?
doubt, huh?
Why would we have to have other record? That's your opinion, I guess. But we would have to have other records.
Oh,
Says who?
so let me ask you a question then. Let me ask you a question because I can back up why I think it's Theophilus of Antioch because that's the only other Theophilus we would have a record of, right? Can you show me where these sources, these people that you are claiming that believes it's a Roman soldier, what's their source for that? Do you know what their source for that is? Or is it just them compromising and coping?
It's kind of it's just like you, and you say it's. I want to hear your reasoning because I don't know. I haven't really dug into. I mean, maybe they have reasons, maybe they don't. But you seem to know.
Yeah,
it, so teach me why it must be this other guy.
Yeah, because I believe and I have evidence that Paul comes from Marcion and the Apostolicon. It's first time we ever hear about any of the letters of Paul. You can Google that, like when do we first hear about the letters of Paul, and write about Marcion, and you'll read that they come from Marcion, who lived in the mid-2nd century. And then if we know that in the mid-2nd century that a man named Theophilus, who happened to be a bishop of Antioch, existed, well, then it makes sense, right? But would
Maybe
then
it
be
is.
the...
And so what's the problem with it being this guy? Like, is it when he was alive, or what's the issue?
Writing
with
to him in the mid-2nd century? Yeah, because if Luke's written in the mid-2nd century, that means all the Gospels are written in the mid-2nd century.
And so this Theophilus that you think, I mean, that would just be such an amateur mistake. I don't think even if they were lying, they would be stupid enough to do that.
Oh, I don't think.
Where?
Well, no, I don't. Well, keep in mind, Marcion went against the mainstream Christianity, right? Well, Marcion's like the founder, would be considered like the founder of Christianity. But no, I believe that the church fathers later on, because they didn't expect us to use stellometry, they didn't expect us to use data science. You got to remember, for the longest time, the Bible was not allowed to physically be owned by people. Only clergy was allowed to own it, right? So the early church fathers had every incentive to lie. In fact, Eusebius states that he's got no problem lying, and most of the early church history that you're going to get comes from Eusebius, right? He's a church historian, and he flat out says, I'm going to lie. I'm intentionally going, if it's going to hurt the church, I'm not going to mention it.
Oh, I think you mentioned that Theophilus might have been a high priest, right? But multiple. So I'm reading here. It says multiple Jewish records, including Josephus, record that Theophilus was high priest of Israel from 37 to 41
And when he
AD.
stopped, yeah, 41. Do any of the scholars put Luke
It doesn't
or
say when he
Acts.
died though.
Yeah, but he wouldn't be he wouldn't be the most excellent. You're retired
Why
then,
not?
and because he has no status then. He's
He's a
retired,
retired high priest. He's still a gangster, bro.
but there's no
I
reason to
mean,
write to him. He has no
that's
say in
ridiculous.
anything. Do you
You
know?
don't
Do you
know
know?
that? That's a baseless claim. You don't know how much say he had just because he's not functioning in the temple anymore. Doesn't mean he's not influential.
Cyber, let me get big screen. This is from Britannica. Theophilus of Antioch, born near Tigris and Euphrates rivers, modern Iraq, died April 180, Antioch, modern Antakya, Turkey. He was a Syrian saint and the sixth bishop of Antioch and one of the Christian apologists of the 2nd century.
Yeah, we're talking about a different guy.
You're not talking about Theophilus of Antioch?
No, we're talking about the high priest of Israel.
Oh, he died. He died in 60.
The high
Possibly.
priest of Israel? What's his name?
Yeah. Well, it's Matthias ben Theophilus. But he died between 60 to 66. So yeah, Luke's definitely not being written to him.
You don't know that, bro. That's insane.
He's dead, my dude. He's dead. Why would Luke be writing to somebody who's dead?
How do you know when he died?
Yeah, they got records of it.
Oh, where? Let me show me. You've seen him?
Yeah, we could go look at this.
How do you spell his name, Cyber?
Oh, what? Who has that noise in their background?
How do you spell his name, Cyber?
It's going to be Theof or Philus.
And how old do priests have to be when they retire? I can't remember, but he might not have even been that old in 66.
It is. So they retire at 50 for Levites. The Levites. Hold on. So the Levites retire at 50. The high priest is normally released. It's normally a lifetime appointment, so they'll normally be released when they're no longer able to carry out their duties, so their successor can carry on. Which is why most of them will place Theophilus. So there's nothing that actually mentions his death, but that's why scholars date it. Is they're being generous when they're giving him some extra years. It might have been earlier, it could have been later. Oh man, it's almost one.
Where's that distinction for the high priest in Scripture?
That it's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go see if we can find it.
At the age of 50, they must retire. So 41, he retires, 50 years old. 70 AD, he's 80. He's 79 years old. He's still kicking. He's yapping. He's got friends. He's probably at the city gates with all the other elders. Why wouldn't you write to him?
Do you know what the purpose of Luke is for?
To give an eyewitness account of the events.
For
that happened.
what? Why do
changed the world.
Why do scholars think Luke was written?
When?
No, why do they think Luke was written?
Well, Luke tells you why it's written in the first
So it's going to
chapter.
be in so it's going to be in Numbers chapter 8, and it says, and the Lord said to Moses, this applies to the Levites, men 25 years old or more shall come and take part in the work of the tent meeting, but at the age of 50 they must retire from their regular service and work no longer. They may assist their brothers in performing their duties at the tent of the meeting, but they themselves must not do the work. This then is how you are to assign the responsibilities for the Levites.
Yeah, so did you just make up the thing about the high priest?
What do you mean?
You said the high priest doesn't have to retire at 50, but you just made that up, or where is that from?
So the Levitical priests, there's not. Let's see. Oh no, we just know from other scriptures that you see that they pass away, that they serve till they're unalive. Like for example, let me go find. Oh, did I close it? I closed out my spreadsheet. So when we go read about like Ahimelech, because this is a case where Jesus makes a mistake when he's quoting somebody, but Ahimelech served until he passed away, and then his son Abiathar took over.
Who's Ahimelech?
Ahimelech was a high priest. If you remember the story, David is on the run. They go into the temple or they go into the tabernacle, not the temple. The temple's not built. They go to the tabernacle to get food, and there's no food, or there's only bread, but the bread is show bread. It's the bread of presence. It's only for the priests. It's only for the Levites. And Ahimelech gives it to him because he sees that they're hungry. So Ahimelech gives it to him. But then when Jesus tells this story in Matthew, he makes the mistake and says Abiathar. Jesus gets the name wrong.
So where does it say he served like until he was high priest until he died? Where does it say that?
We get Ahimelech was killed.
Oh, so it wasn't. So it could have been the age limit still applied to him, right? It wasn't an old age thing, like you said that, for the normal priest it's 50, but then you said for the high priest they typically serve. The limit doesn't apply to them; they serve until they die. But I'm just wondering where you got that right.
Oh yeah, just be in Hebrews. Yeah, so Hebrews 7:23. Furthermore, the former priests were many in number because they were prevented by death from continuing in office.
Oh, you think that so that contradicts? You think that contradicts Numbers 8? What was it? 7?
What?
Hebrews 7,
No, I'm telling
14?
you, we're talking about the high priest.
Hebrews 7? What verse?
Mm-hmm. I'd have to go back and look.
It's 23. I found it.
23, yeah.
Now there have been many of those priests since unaliving prevented them from, from continuing. But I think the limit still applies. I don't think Theophilus was priest past 50. I doubt anybody was serving as high priest past 50. I don't know. Whatever. But I don't think it's a stretch to say Theophilus was alive. The priest was alive, and that's who Paul was writing to. And
that's what it is. Joshua 26. That's what it is. Yeah, so it says Joshua 6 says, a slayer who has fled to a city of refuge must remain there until he stands before the congregation for judgment and until the death of the high priest who is in office at that time. So the high priest is the high priest until he dies.
What verse is that?
Joshua 26.
6:26 or
Joshua 20 verse 6.
Oh, okay. 26. Okay. They are to stay in the city Till they have stood trial before the assembly, and until the death of the high priest who was serving at that time.
Yep, so it's a lifetime appointment.
Well, no, that doesn't mean that they have to be serving
It
when they
does
die.
mean it's a lifetime appointment. What are they
No, it
going to do?
doesn't.
Go.
It definitely doesn't.
Explain what it means by when it says until the high priest dies.
So whoever is the high priest when they are, when they stood trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that guy dies, then they.
There's only.
go back.
Hold on. Go read
But
it
it doesn't
again.
say
Go.
he has to be high priest when he dies.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
They are to stay in that city
Who is until the death of the high priest who is in office at that time.
Yeah, that time is referring to their trial, not referring to
No.
his
It's
position when he
the
died.
person who is high priest at that time. You idiot. You're dumb.
No,
It's
I'm
the high
definitely
priest who
not.
is in office at that time.
Yeah, at the time of the trial, not his death. It's that time is talking about the trial. The whole thing is about them going back to their home. That's the topic. That's the time, their trial. I mean,
Why?
you
Hold on.
absolutely butchered the first row.
Why would they? Hold on. Why would they need to wait for the high priest who's no longer standing as high priest? Because he's no longer standing as high priest. If he retires, right? He's no longer standing at high priest. Why would he still wait? Because the next high priest would just go
Why
and
does
say,
it
"Hey, you're
matter
free to
if he's
go."
high priest or not? It's just it's a time period. The time period is the same whether he's the high priest or not. Whoever's the high priest at the time of the trial, when he dies, even if
Hold
he's
on.
retired,
Until the death of the high priest that shall be in those days, then the slayer shall return. So it's literally talking about the high priest of the time. So it's the high priest. Like you're just being dumb.
No, it's
Look. Here's the thing. Here's the
Definitely
thing.
not,
Right? We've been on here for a long time. You've got cooked. You've got cooked on every prophecy you're provided. I've cooked you on the dating of Luke. Now you're just grasping at straws for why this could potentially be the Theophilus of the time period. I've shown you, right, that the high priests at least serve until they're 50. What do you think the average age of the time was?
I have no idea. 70, 80, maybe, on the low end. That's what it says in the Psalms. You're gonna be like, oh, well, actually, according to my calculations, it's way lower. According to my
So
science
during
data.
So usually they only lived, right? The average lifespan was around 30 to 35 years. Now, we can't really take that into consideration because, well, no, the reason why I'm saying is we do know that the majority of people that unalived were children. So that's going to skew that age, right? However, it says most adults who survived childhood were expected to live into their 50s and 60s, with a few reaching into their 80s. Just a few, right? So
Right? I
what?
mean,
But what
somebody
we
said that. Some
hold
guy
on,
said
hold
that,
on,
sure.
hold on. But what we have are scholars dating
Ooh.
Theophilus's death, dating his death to 60, possibly 66.
Where?
I'll let you Google that. I'll let you do that work. I'm
Oh,
not
but
going to do your
come on,
brain
bro,
of
you're
work
the
for
I
you.
found
expert.
it. I
Name
found
the
it.
scholar.
You want big screen, Hanji?
Yeah, let me take a screenshot real quick. Hold on.
All right.
I love it. I mean, scholars, even the term scholars, like, it's just people.
Oh, you don't want to deny scholars
Ripping
now.
themselves off.
If you want to deny scholars, then there goes your reasoning for dating.
Scholars are dumb. I've always thought scholars are dumb. Their word is, they're just like any other person,
Oh, so now you don't have any reasoning
especially in the
to
information
date.
age.
Yeah, so now you don't have any reasoning to date any of the Gospels, anything pre-temple. You have no reason to date it to that.
I don't
The only
need
thing
to because
you
I have
had
a
were
spiritual
scholars.
relationship with God.
Oh, that
It's a
doesn't mean
real
nothing.
thing.
And
Well, you wouldn't
Hanji,
know because you don't seek him
Hanji,
out.
well, Hanji, do you have a spiritual relationship with your deities?
Yep.
Yeah, but you talk about Jesus all day. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I want people to
Yeah, I
believe
mean,
in
we
true
want people
things.
to, yeah, we want people to understand that they're following a lie.
Right. So you talk about it all day. Why don't you go stream about Zeus?
I do actually.
I've never seen that.
No,
Actually,
that's
Hanji,
not.
not
I have seen
Hanji.
Hanji
problem.
once,
Oh,
but
yeah, yeah. Hold on. I'll
literally
ask
you're up in
Hanji.
here talking about
Hold on,
Jesus.
hold on. Hanji. Be honest. Be honest. Is Zeus sometimes an asshole?
When is he not?
There you go.
I love the fucker, but when is he not?
I mean, your obsession is with Jesus, though, right? Like, you're always on here talking about Jesus.
It's not an obsession, it's actually a study. When we go based off of historical facts, it doesn't matter what I believe in. My belief doesn't change history when it comes to certain situations and certain characters in books.
How many
And
hours
hold
do
on,
you think you guys have
real
streamed
quick.
about Jesus in the last year?
So Jam, I don't believe in Zeus. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in Zeus. Anyways,
Someone
what?
thought you believe in him?
Yeah.
You guys
And
said
what were
you're
you?
not
That's
obsessed,
mine.
right?
That's my asshole.
Oh, I'm
That woke up my cat.
hold on. I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I don't know if chat heard what you were saying. Can you say it again?
Who, me?
No.
Oh.
Guest.
Pride goes before destruction.
He wants to talk about pride, but yet his ego is literally a one-way ticket to his Hades if he actually read his book.
Anyways, with that said, it is almost 1. I gotta go to bed. I gotta work in the morning. There's 72 of you here. There's 107 of you over on YouTube. Matthew, come back tomorrow. I'll debate you tomorrow. I'll talk with you tomorrow. I am getting ready to get off because I do gotta work in the morning. I do appreciate you coming up. Tenebrous, Burns. Are those the only? I think those might be the only two that survived. Konami, and all the other mods on YouTube. I appreciate the work that you guys do to help me. My mods here on TikTok, I thank you all for the work you do. I know it's not easy. I appreciate it. And everybody who gifted, I appreciate all the gifts. It does mean a lot. Let me do some shout outs for these. We have Princess Leia, Ari, Mother of Moose. How you doing, Mother of Moose? Let's give Mother of Moose some mad W's. Mother of Moose is always in here doing awesome. Semper, nice to see you. Mary, thank you so much. Smozilla, if you're not following Smozilla, go give Smozilla a follow. They host awesome lives as well. Holy fuck, Semper. Semper's in here like absolutely gifting the fuck out of things. We've got Jonesy. So for everybody that was gifting, I absolutely appreciate it. The new subscriptions, I appreciate. Let me go double check. I said I was going to be better about this. Let me go double check super chats. Make sure I'm not missing out any super chats. So I did get from, these are both from Ninja G number 2. Both of them are for $1.99. One of them said, get a job, bro. And another one said, debate with AI. Why debate with a human? Know what I love? I love the fact that he just sent me $4. A Christian just spent $4.
A win is a win.
Hey, a win is a win. Let's go see. Is there? Let me. Oh, and I got a holy fuck, Carlos Valdez for the $100. I want to see on both TikTok and YouTube. I want to see at least 200 W's for Carlos. Just W Carlos for the $100 super sticker. Holy fuck.
Tiny, tiny, rar. Hey, well done. Well deserved. There you go.
Like do I have anything on
Your soundboard.
like
There you go.
fuck. I appreciate that so much, Carlos. Like, thank you so much.
Cyber is flabbergasted.
I am. I am absolutely flabbergasted. And the sticker that he chose was wrecked. Like, let me see if I can bring. I don't know how Justin. I know Justin has like a bunch of apps brought up. Is Thinker live right now?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, if Thinker is live, let's go raid Thinker. On TikTok. What I haven't rated her for so long. What's her name on TikTok? On YouTube, it's
Engrowth.
Archthinker. Yeah, Engrowth on.
Yeah, the other account got Benunud.
Oh, is it? Is it like permanently gone?
No, 7 days. She's on her backup.
Okay. I don't know what it is. Ray and Lauren, come back tomorrow.
It's ironic coming from a lesbian too.
Yeah, but on YouTube, it is Archthinker. Go follow Archthinker. She's awesome. When you get in there, I want to see cyber raids when you go in there. Or Cyber says get a Bible. It could be either one. And over here,
Oh yeah, the Queen Jezebel. That's the name of it.
okay,
Queen
and
Jezebel.
it is the Queen Jezebel on TikTok. Mary posted it. I will see you all tomorrow. Carlos, thank you. I am still flabbergasted. Thank you so much.
Too bad he doesn't exist, Ray and Lauren. But that's a conversation for another day. Be sure to come up tomorrow.
That is. And Hanji,
Yeah, I know.
I was gonna say knock knock. And with that said,
Plug in, log on, let's break it down. True things.
I stopped that because Carlos just sent another $200 saying big W's for you, Cyber D and Hanji. So thank you so much. Holy fuck.
Plug